Welcome, everyone, to the next episode of What's Your Mess? Mental, Emotional, Social Status of Life. I am your host, Tracey D. Armstrong, and today we have another amazing guest here to share her story about her experiences that have shaped her life. And just a reminder, this podcast is not just about the stories being told, but it's about the triumphs and the resilience and the strength that these guests have shown to overcome these obstacles in their lives. So let's dive into this mess today. Guests, go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience.
Hi, Tracy. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Crystal T. Ash. I am a speaker as well as an author. I've been working in this space of mentoring young people for the past probably 15 years and just excited to be able to tell a little bit more of my story. I know I pour in a lot to young people, and this time I'm pouring a little bit out on a deeper level. So I'm excited to be able to share my story.
Awesome. And I'm excited to have you. And you said, you've been mentoring young people. Let me just ask real quick, what age group do you normally mentor?
It could start as small as two or three, some would say. But, because I used to be a basketball coach for 3 and 4 year olds, nobody would want to train them, so to speak. But they were my passion because to me, they were quicker to pick up the fundamentals of the sport and things of that nature. So I've mentored young people throughout the years, but I think my sweet spot is probably going to be anywhere from like 10 years old up till about anywhere to 25 and older, if I'm totally honest about it. And so I've been able to connect with young people that now that I'm seeing who've started, their own firms, or one young lady has become a designer, has some amazing designs. One young lady who's now in PA school, and it's just, to be able to see them, some that are about to graduate college, to be able to see them and how they've grown. And I always tell them, I'm not here to tell you what to do, right? I'm just here to tell you some things that may have worked for me along the way that may be able to benefit you.
Yes, completely understand. Hat goes off to you and the 3, 4 year olds. I coach cheer, and I don't no, don't you take the 3, 4 year olds over there. No, give me the 10 through 18. So I feel you. So as we get started today, I know that you haven't always been an author and a speaker, and a mentor. So let's tell everyone, what's one of your messes that you've gone through in your life?
All right. So the mess that I've gone through in life is spending probably the greater part of 39 years of my life people pleasing. It's something that I picked up as a young child. I can remember the moment that I picked it up. I remember the first time that I started to compare myself to others. I was in the third grade. I was in an award ceremony, and I had just received a certificate for receiving AB honor roll, right? And I look up, and one of my classmates was getting a trophy. And I'm like, what is she getting that trophy for? And they're like, oh, my teacher says, these are for the students who made all A's for the year. And I instantly downgraded the certificate that I had worked hard for, my AB honor roll certificate. And I was like, it almost put in my brain like, oh, you're not enough. You got to get that A trophy. Like, you have to strive to get that because that is what people want from you. And the next year, all throughout fourth grade, I did everything possible to get extra credit and worked really hard to get that trophy. Needless to say, that trophy, amongst others, is still sitting on a mantle at my mom's house because it put me in a place of, you gotta be in the spotlight, you gotta, do the best or be the best, and so people can see you. And what I realized is that in my searching out, trying to do that, I was also hiding a part of myself. I was hiding who I really was or who I really wanted to be in life. And it actually sent me in a spiral. Something I talk about in the book. It's called, I started drinking at the age of 13. And what I would say, it was uncontrollable because I was hiding it from people. I was, you know, binge drinking on the weekend, but then, throughout the week, I'm this honor student that, is making all A's and captain of the basketball team and senior class president and all these things. But what people didn't know is that I had this like hidden side of me that, it's like, oh, I'll people please and I'll be all these things that you see me doing. But there was this hidden side that I kept from people for years. And I drank really heavily from age 13 to age 19, and was in college, and I began to say to myself, like, I think I read something somewhere. It was like, if you drink by yourself, you may be considered an alcoholic. And I was like, I don't want that label. Like, I don't want to be considered that person. And so going on, I stopped cold turkey. Was like, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore. But I was still in that space of chasing the accolades. And so still hiding a part of myself and using the awards and the titles and things of that nature to define who I was as a person. And of course, everybody, the world kind of stopped in 2020, 4 years ago, and we all had to take a deeper look, not only at our homes around us, but also at ourselves. And I began to take a deeper look at myself. And what I saw was, there was some cracks in the armor. There was some things that I really needed to work on as a person. And I'll tell anybody, I'm a big proponent of two things: Jesus and therapy. Started therapy in 2020, and it drastically changed my life, drastically changed who I am as a person. I am more open, I am more transparent, I am more of me. It's something my dad said to me, um probably a year after I started therapy. He said, I feel like I'm finally starting to meet the real Crystal. I, I feel like you've been pretending to be someone all of these years, and now we finally get to meet you. So that's where I am.
Oh, wow. And let me just ask a question real quick with that. How old were you when he said that?
I was 39. Yeah, I was 39 years old. Yep.
That because I'm just thinking he said it's like you said it's more of you, and he felt like he was finally getting to see the true you at
Yeah.
39 years old.
Right,
And
right.
so wow. And you unpacked a lot right there. And I just want to go back to the beginning. And I'm listening to you talk, and I'm like, oh, I can relate to that. Oh, she got A B on the road. Oh no. Oh,
Yeah,
she got a trophy. Wait a minute, I want that trophy. That
yeah.
guilty, guilty. Oh, I need to get straight A's. And so with that, how did it affect you? And then you said there's a couple of things. And then you said you started drinking at 13. So I
Yes.
want to talk about that space there mentally.
Mhm.
How were you mentally when you were in that space of life right
I would say I couldn't label it at the time or identify it at the time, but I would really say there was a lot of depression and a lot of confusion because you're in that space, at that age where you're trying to figure out who you are as a person, but it's like who you are, for me, who I really am, in the spaces, whether it's my family or friends or at school in the community. It was like who I really was would have been considered weird, right? It's like I'm the girl that likes to go hiking and, out on the trails by herself and just kind of doing her own thing, just kind of wanderlust if you think about it. But those things were not quote unquote accepted, where I'm from. And so I had to, for me at 13, it's like, okay, you have to blend in and become what you see other people doing. Play the sports, be in band, be the, join all these leadership groups, be the, you know, teenage Sunday school teacher. It's like all these things that, people performing for other people, basically.
there?
And living it's almost like living a double life, living a dual life, to where it became exhausting. And I think I've reached a fever pitch in my 30s where it was like, okay, I'm tired. I'm tired of, pretending I'm not who I really am, pretending to be this person or performing these different spaces. If you think about it, most of us, who we are, whether it's in our homes or around people that we really feel like we can relax around, is not who we are whether we're on the job or whether we're in, different spaces, social spaces, because you're performing daughter, you're performing sister, you're performing, in your case, as a teacher, you're performing teacher, and we're performing in all of these spaces for people and not really being able to tap into who we are from an authentic place, from a transparent place, and that just be enough. Because essentially, you're in a space where it's like, who I am as a person is not enough. So let me perform for you. Let me put on an act for you. And then with anything, if you've ever been in any type of production, once it's done, it's like, whew, man, I'm tired. Like, whether you've been in a play or on a movie set or whatever, it's like you've performed so much that it becomes exhausting. So that's
Yeah.
where I was as a young person. It was exhausting.
Wow. And I'm just thinking now, because you're saying I'm thinking, I'm looking at the timetable. I'm looking at from 13, school, and then you're saying all the way into like your 30s.
Hmm.
So I'm just wondering, like, as far as emotionally, you kind of tapped into it already, kind of like the depression or when you're not performing, taking the mask off, like emotionally, how were you handling this for so many years?
I think for the most part, from an emotional standpoint, like there were periods, like I know in college, where I would stress myself out so much because it's like, oh, you're president of this organization, or you're over this, or you're part of this team, or part of whatever it was. And as well as working and doing schoolwork, I got to a point where it was like I was so stressed out and burned out that I was like, I don't know what to do. And, phone call to my dad, and he was like, maybe you should go talk to somebody. So that began my journey into like going into mental health spaces. So I went to counseling when I was in college. But because of the stigma, I did not tell my mom, I didn't tell family members and stuff like that. I didn't even tell friends that I was going, and it was so bad. I would literally, because the place you would go to counseling was on campus, I would hide my car because I didn't want people to see like, oh, what's Crystal doing over there? Because of that stigma. And what I had to realize is like, even in that, I'm trying to get help, but then I'm still performing for people, right? it's
Yeah.
it's almost like, getting the life jacket but then still trying to perform and dance for everybody because I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay. And it's like, no, you're not okay. And so that made a shift in my life during that time where it was like I didn't need to have my hands in so many spaces that to be considered good enough. And so I backed away from a lot of things, and I felt comfortable with doing that during that time. And then you go on down the road, and I began to make a career shift in my life because I was working in healthcare once I graduated from college, and I made a shift into spaces to be able to work with young people because that had always been my passion, is working with young people. And in those spaces, I begin to feel that same creep up of, the titles and the accolades and wanting to be recognized. And when I began to feel that again, I was like, oh, I'm going back into that space again. I can
Mhm.
feel it. I sense it. I cannot, I gotta get away from that feeling. And even in those moments, you know allowing it to stress me out again, and getting in those places of feeling, starting to feel anxiety. So on top of, the depression of being exhausted, starting to feel bits of anxiety, and like, am I enough in this space, and am I performing well, or am I doing good in this space? Because I was starting over in a sense. shifting from career to career.
Right. And with that, like I was going to ask you about social and status of life, but you kind of touched on that because socially, and I'm going back to the college time, you said you were going to get help. So you realized, hey, I need to do something different.
Yeah.
Socially, I need to do something different. I need to change.
Yeah.
But then you were still hiding the
Yeah.
fact that you were getting help. So I want to ask that, how did that affect you socially, like with your friends and things like that? Because now you're probably starting to change once
Yeah.
you're getting help.
Right. Right. And so it like if we go back to the college space, my friends didn't know. They just knew like, oh, well, Crystal's no longer going to be over this organization, or she's no longer working on this, or she's saying no more, right? And
Hmm.
it's like, okay, well, this is different because Crystal always says yes, because being a people pleaser, there are no boundaries, right? It's like,
Right.
yes, yes, oh yeah, I can do that, I can do that, I can do that. And it's like there were no boundaries with anyone. And so there was some shifts with some people, and some people, we no longer became friends because I needed to say yes to me. And sometimes saying yes to yourself means saying no to someone else. And I had to do that because in that space, when you're constantly doing the people pleasing, constantly doing the accolades and the awards thing, there's a bit of self betrayal and a bit of self abandonment that you do, where you show up to places on E, completely depleted, not being able to, give it your all because you don't have anything inside to give because you've given so much to other people. And sometimes people don't understand that when you start to say no, or you start to, some people will categorize it as having an attitude. And it's like, no, I
Mhm.
just don't agree with what you're saying anymore. I've gone along with it, but I don't agree anymore. Like, and this is me showing up for myself about my beliefs and my thoughts and my core values about certain things.
Hmm. And that's what I was kind of thinking that you probably was going to say, because when you start to actually get help and when you actually start to change and make those adjustments to your status of life, some people will fall off. Everybody doesn't agree with the change. And so I was thinking that you were going to say, like, oh, Crystal, she's different now. Oh, who, this
Right.
isn't the same
I,
Crystal that I met. And so what I do want to ask you is, if there's someone in the audience, because I'm not if, I know that there's someone in the audience, the people pleasing, the chasing the accolades, the emotional, I would say the emotional exhaustion, and they still keep trying to do that what they're doing and be the same. What advice would you give someone that's going through that right now?
there's a quote that I just came across by Paul Chalo, and he talks about what if it what if life wasn't us becoming, but what if life was us unbecoming? And so I would challenge anybody, if you're seeking to become something, what if it's meant that you're supposed to be unbecoming something that you were never supposed to be? And that's what I feel like was me. I became something that I thought other people wanted from me, whether it was the accolades or the titles, or being the friend that always shows up, being the strong friend, in most situations. I became that person, just go with the flow, go along to get along, oh, she's low maintenance, Crystal's not gonna, she's just a peaceful person. I became that person because of that sense of rejection, right? Of thinking that someone would reject me. But in therapy, what I realized is that people pleasing has nothing to do with love and has everything to do with fear. Has everything to do with fear. And if people will identify and face those fears, you'll get to a point where who's supposed to be with you is going to be with you, whether you are the person that you perform for, or if you take off the mask and you just really show yourself. I used to always ask myself internally when I was interacting with people, if I show you who I really am, will you stay or will you go? And it's in those moments where I started to take the mask off, and the ones who were supposed to stay have stayed, and those are the real people who I'm supposed to be connected to and to do life with. And the people who left, it's okay. It's
Exactly.
okay. Because this is me. This is me in my fullness. There are no more masks. It's just me, and getting away from things that we've been conditioned to believe about who we are as people, right? Whether that's from your family culture or your friend circles, your social circles, religion, even conditioning from society that says, oh, you're supposed to be this because you're a woman, or you're supposed to be this because you're black, or you're supposed to be this because of whatever reason. And it's like, no, let me just be me. And that's okay.
Mm.
That's okay. And so I would encourage anybody, being you is okay. That's it. Who
And
you are.
and that's and okay. And I'm hearing you, and I agree with you. I just know I can hear somebody in the audience saying that they want to stop people pleasing, that they want to be their true, authentic self, that it's something that they really, truly desire. And like you said, it's about fear of thinking that you're not going to be accepted or fear of thinking you're not enough.
Yeah.
How can they change? I know you went to therapy, and I know that maybe something from therapy you can say may help them, but how can they do it?
From a practical standpoint, you have to agree with you choosing you each day. And that's not from I think society has taught us that if you're choosing yourself, you're being selfish. And it's not a selfish thing to say, that's not what I want, or I don't like that. It's okay to say that. I often will tell young people about when I was younger, um, my family on hot summer day go get a box of popsicles or something like that, and all the kids are running up to get popsicles. And for years, my family thought that I loved orange popsicles because I would always end up with the orange popsicle, right? So they thought, oh, Crystal likes the orange popsicle. They didn't know I hated the orange popsicle. I really wanted the red one. I wanted the strawberry or the cherry or whatever that flavor was that the red one was. But because I was afraid to use my voice and to say what I actually wanted in life, I ended up with the orange popsicle, something I didn't want. And I think sometimes when you're people pleasing, I won't say sometimes, when you are people pleasing, you're just ending up with what life decides to give you, and you don't get what you actually want out of life. You don't get to live the life that you actually want to lead because you're just accepting what people are giving you out of fear that they're not going to be there if you say no. And that's from a family standpoint, love relationships, friendships. You have to decide within yourself that you're enough. And if you decide, okay, I am enough, who I bring to the table is enough, who I am in this world is enough. I don't have to jump through hurdles for anyone. I don't have to try to please anyone. I don't have to try to perform for anyone. You go from your relationships being transactional to them being transformational. Now you're able to actually have greater relationships with people, deeper, more meaningful relationships with people because you're no longer performing. They actually get to see a portrait of you, that real you. And I think in essence, when we do that, we give other people the permission to also do that. They don't perform anymore. They feel like, oh, I can just really totally be myself. And so I would tell anybody who is struggling with that, decide each day, because trust me, it's not a, oh, I wake up in the morning and it's like, oh, I'm no longer a people pleaser. It's like, no, that's not how that works. It's making a decision each and every day when you look in that mirror in the morning or whenever you get up, when you look in that mirror to say, I am enough, I am loved, I am accepted, I am in this world for a purpose that God placed inside of me. There's no one who can do what I do like I do it. I'm unique in that way. And so I don't have to perform for anyone. Like you have to choose each and every day, every interaction that you have, every moment that you have in life, you have to make a decision. Am I going to betray myself or am I going to be myself?
That's good. You just dropped so many nuggets right there. I'm like, I don't even know which part I'm gonna take because this the unbecoming, what you become, the am I gonna be me, the transactional relationships to transformative relationships. Oh my gosh, so amazing. So, if someone wanted to connect with you or purchase your book and support you in those ways, how can they do that?
Absolutely. Of course, I wrote my book. I self-published in 2021. It's called Lessons from My Grandma's Table. And I talk about some of those moments in my life where those like life-defining moments that happen in the book. And I also add lessons that I learned from those things. And I began those lessons, like acquiring those lessons as a young person, probably three or four. Probably shouldn't have been drinking coffee with my grandma, but I was. But we would sit at her table and drink coffee. And I learned to listen and get those lessons from her. But that book can be purchased at my website. It's www.crystaltash.com or on Amazon or Barnes and Noble. It can also be purchased in the physical form as well as the ebook form. People can connect with me via social media, of course. On Instagram, it's CTA Speaks. That's CTA Speaks. As well as with Facebook, it's just Crystal T. Ash. Or on LinkedIn, it's Crystal T. Ash as well.
Crystal T. Ash. And what I'm going to do at the end of the video, for those that are watching, I'll have all her information with her links and her book information. So go and support, go and connect, like, share, subscribe to everything that she has going on because it sounds like Crystal T. Ash has a word and some lessons that you all can take with you for life. I want to just thank you. As we wrap up, I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for your story. And I just want to thank you for sharing
Mhm.
because there's an audience out there that people please and they're still people pleasing.
Right.
And some are just still struggling and they just don't know how to. One thing you said was being able to say no. Some people do not know how to say no because they're afraid, afraid of if they say no. But you said that you said if you show them your authentic self and they decide to leave, then that's not the person or the people or the group that's meant to go along with you into your future. And
Right.
so, last thing, any last words for the audience?
I would encourage people to always remember the beauty of you. Don't compare yourself because you will rob yourself of living a full life. We talk about a lot of times living life in abundance, and a lot of times people will associate that with a monetary value, but it's not about monetary value. It's about living a life of love, full of joy, full of peace, full of just embracing the fullness of all that life has to hold. And so I would encourage people to seek out living in abundance. Um, and that's in love and, being able to really grab a hold of purpose, being great, able to grab a hold of being in community with people and, getting back to a place of being able to connect with people on a more intimate and real level and taking off the mask so you can fully experience that. Because at one day, we're all going to leave this earth. And I hope with that, everyone would be able to leave and look back. I always like to say, it's a quote that I love so much, is the amazement is in the journey. And so it's like, will your journey be full of amazement, or will it be full of you self abandoning yourself? And so I hope that everyone's journey is full of that amazement and that abundance.
That is a great way to end. I hope that everyone's journey is full of amazement. Yes, and not self abandonment.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for those words. And audience out there, take heed to those words and hold on to those words. And it's a daily,
Yeah,
daily transformation.
it really
So,
is.
as we wrap up another episode of What's Your Mess, I want to leave everyone with this powerful quote. If you want to stay sad, keep thinking about the past. If you want to be anxious or worried, keep thinking about the future. But if you want to be happy, focus on the present day and be grateful for the things that you have. This is Tracey D. Armstrong and Crystal T. Ash. We're
Thank you so
saying
much, Tracy.
you're welcome and have a good one, everybody.